American women's soccer player Megan Rapinoe missed an easy penalty kick that cost her team and her country a chance at the World Cup this summer. And then she laughed. Is it appropriate to laugh when you fail that big? Or is it necessary? We're going to debate that question tonight on The Tom Kelly Show.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show. Thank you. Keep that
Trigger warning, spoiler alert. Oh my God, how did you miss that? You are experiencing the last American Women's World Cup Soccer edition of the Tom Kelly Show. If you guys have been following me, you know that this is not the podcast for sports. This is not the podcast where you come to get the latest news on Women's World Cup Soccer or, frankly, my nephew's T-ball. This is the podcast about me, Tom Kelly, one comedian owning his midlife crisis. And I am a passive fan of sports, and I kind of enjoy women's sports because I see a lot of myself as a undiscovered stand-up comedian in the players I see on the field. Yes, there is a disparity in the attention that and pay that women athletes get over men. And what I love about women's sports is the athletes you see there aren't paying to become super rich Michael Jordans or Derek Jeters or Alex Rodriguez's. They're there in large part risking their bodies, pouring their bodies into their sport, their art, for the love of the game. And I also, it's funny, a friend of mine, actually my second cousin Joe Naughton once said this about why he loves beauty pageants, which I love too. His line was, I love winners and I support losers. And Megan Rapinoe, oh my God, did I say her name Rapinoe or Rapinoe before? And again, there you go, top in her game. And I really watch the games on mute, read the articles online, and don't know much about her. I'll read the news story because the news story is interesting for people who are following me and, fixing up their lives and trying to get to the next level. The news story from CBS News Store. The news story from CBS News. After Megan Rapinoe missed a crucial penalty during the USWNT's loss to Sweden in the Women's World Cup on Sunday, she explained why she appeared to be laughing. She says, this is a sick joke. For me personally, this is a dark comedy that I missed a penalty, she told Fox Sports. It was, and this is where we get into the minutia of the sport that I don't pay attention. Round 16 matchup between Sweden and the U.S. remained scoreless for 120 minutes before the match went on to a penalty shootout. And Rapinoe stepped up to the penalty spot. She kicked, she missed, and the score ended 3-2. Now, I've been thinking about this story for a couple of days. Is Megan Rapinoe an awful human being? She failed her team. She ended her 17-year legendary professional women's soccer career on the lowest of notes and the easiest of misses. She missed a shot that, frankly, you or I could have gotten, people. And there she was laughing. Is that, a douchebag athlete being like, hey, I don't need you people, I made my money? Or is this the embodiment of a piece of advice we all should be taking in our own individual journeys, which is, you have to laugh your way through failure. You have to make the big chances you take less important. Now, I found that laugh she made the same laugh I make when I miss a shot playing soccer with my nephews or basketball with my nephew Joey. And actually, my nephew Joey will taunt me and say mean things to me. But yeah, the laugh sure seemed inappropriate to many. And yet I saw myself in that moment. First of all, how can you laugh after costing your team and all of your teammates and your country the game, the year? I mean, remember, too, this is even just a one-year sport. It's not like, oh, you'll go get them tomorrow, gang. No, they are not playing this again for 4 more years. And Megan Rapinoe, God damn it, this would be such a better podcast if I knew how to say her name right. Rapinoe! You say Rapinoe, I say Rapinoe. But, how do you take big shots? You have to make it less important. I remember a day when I was doing some sort of a 2-minute comedy piece on The View. Oh, it was about Christmas lights. And I remember dealing with the producer, and everybody was running around. It was a big show. My thing was a 2-minute piece. And I had this realization that the most important part of my year was the least important part of whoever was preparing that segment's day. I had to step it up. I had to suddenly be funny. And I had to be concise in the notes that I wanted to give to the producer, because, again, what I was obsessing over as what could be my big break was really just a minute to that person. And frankly, in the end, for what was a big deal to me, wasn't that big a deal to everybody in America. I mean, if you think about it, and this is the questions I want to ask pro athletes. Do they treat big games the way I may treat playing ball with my nephews? Yes, I'm competitive in the moment. Do we have to make important moments less important? But, you get into this. This is the World Cup. How can you laugh at the World Cup? Well, it was really round 16. Do you have to be even more serious in round 17 and round 18? How do pro athletes do it? Do it's just a college game, blah, blah, blah. And then, you get dark and serious when you play the real game, and then you got to laugh at your failures, man. I mean, and it's funny. I think what I saw in that clip is what I see in Megan's face is a side of myself that I've lost in the last few years since my career kind of, deflated a bit after the pandemic. Every show has to be the good show. I've lost my ability to fail and to laugh at them. I mean, like in romance, dude, you should have seen me back in my day. And I can't believe I'm saying it like this, but back in my day, I was that guy who could ask 99 girls out at the bar hoping one would say yes. And each rejection story was amusing to me. Now, I mean, I'm a crushaholic. I only ask a couple of women out a year, and when things go bad in a relationship, I end up eating 6 pints of Ben & Jerry's at once. Sometimes. Not 6 at once, but yeah, it's a bad, I get into a dark spot. Now, now that I'm working less, now that I'm older and I'm going out to bars less, now that I'm meeting fewer people when I go out, shows matter more, connections matter more, and failures hurt a little more. And, what's a big failure? Well, that's a matter of perspective. Like, it's funny, like I deal with a lot of radio personalities and get nervous when I'm on the radio, but it's funny, like when I call into a radio show or when you hear these average people who call into radio shows, that's like the high point of that person's life. I mean, and maybe not quite like that, but it is a moment of tension and importance. Maybe not so much as that person having their kids or, graduating from college, but, hey, I'm calling in to talk about Taylor Swift. Oh, my God, I stuttered, oh. And then, you're self-conscious for the rest of the month. For radio personalities, it's just 10 seconds. I mean, that's part of why I'm doing this podcast is I'm trying to make things less important. My last episode, I did it at a cemetery. I did it to be an artist, and I did it to try something new. And did it go viral? No. I mean, you have to make things less important. To play big, you have to be willing to fail big. And whether your failure is big or small, you need to be able to move on. That's my lesson there. Now, I'll give you a bonus minute on women's soccer since we're only at 10 minutes into the show. Donald Trump and a lot of the conservative media slammed the women's soccer team for being political, pushing political agendas and not being too enthusiastic during the national anthem. And I don't want to take the conservative side, but I don't want to take the conservative side because I do enjoy gentle proponents of change. I do enjoy leadership from those who succeed athletically and creatively. But here's the thing about the team not doing the national anthem in round 1 and 2 and whatever it is of this of the soccer tournament of the World Cup is kind of made me not root for them a bit. You know, it kind of made me a little bit cranky. And here's the thing about being an athlete and talking politics. If you want people to take your politics seriously, you have to win. People paid attention to the women's soccer players on pay disparity because they were winning. And it was honestly, you would sit there and go, well, wait a second. These women are filling more seats. They're winning more games. Why aren't they making more money? That was, to the dumb guy watching like me, that's what got me into the conversation. If you're losing, it's just, all right, whatever. You know, Colin Kaepernick, one of the forefathers of the Black Lives Matter movement. People paid attention to him because he gave up a professional football career. We could argue about whether or not he was the next Super Bowl quarterback or not, but he gave up a career to talk about the things he wanted to talk about. But he got good and got noticed first. You know, you ever hear about my friend Ted Nijwadik and his thoughts on pay equality in America? No. Why? Because Ted Nijwadik sucks at soccer. You know? If you want to be an athlete or media personality that changes the world, you have to be good. And I share that message with all 500 of my audio listeners and my 35 YouTube viewers. Don't think there's a little bit of a lesson coming back at myself in this whole podcast. You know what to do, people. Hit subscribe where you can hit subscribe. If you're on YouTube, hit that little bell to make it notify you when I'm doing a new show. And as always, I love and read each one of your comments, including a lot of hate mail I'm getting on a few of my Instagram posts from angry conservatives. That's another side story. But yeah, show love where love can be shown. And thank you for listening to a guy who knows nothing about sports talk about sports. Good night, Australia. Actually, how do Australians say good night? Good day. I know they say good day. Good night. Good night. Good night, Australia. That's all I got.